This video is sponsored by Bloodline, Heroes of Lithos. Leading up to its release, many worried that the Netflix live-action adaptation of One Piece would follow in the footsteps of Cowboy Bebop. That was also one of the greatest animes of all time, and some stunt casting aside, it at first glance looked right. But as fans quickly found out upon its release, it missed the mark on just about everything else. The audience stayed away in droves as a result, and it was embarrassingly cancelled after just one season. One Piece fans can breathe a sigh of relief though, as for Cowboy Bebop missed the mark. One Piece hit the bullseye as much as any live-action anime adaptation can possibly be expected to in this day and age. But considering what happened to not just Cowboy Bebop on Netflix, but to The Witcher, and outside of Netflix but within anime, to Dragonball Evolution, Speed Racer and Ghost in the Shell to name but a few, how did One Piece pull this feat off? What went right with One Piece that went wrong on all the others? We shall see, for in this editorial we will begin with a quick overview of what went wrong with Cowboy Bebop, how One Piece was able to steer clear of those mistakes, and finally, what not just Netflix, but the rest of Hollywood and the entertainment industry at large should take away from this. It's not a coincidence that some things just hit the ground running. For example, this video's sponsor, Bloodline, Heroes of Lithos. Enter the dark fantasy RPG where you can create your own unique legendary champions by combining the bloodlines of elves, demons, demigods, orcs, dwarves, lycans, dragonborn, vampires, and more. With its innovative air system and breathtaking visuals, Bloodline takes RPGs to an entirely new level. It's absolutely free to play and you can download it now using the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen if you're viewing on a PC. You need to try this game. For one thing, it has the most unique gacha gameplay around, where you can create over 4,000 fantasy hybrids by marrying between bloodlines, passing along both unique skills and appearances from each family tree. There are constant updates, as new bloodlines with unique abilities and companion forms for each gender are released every 2 weeks. Check out the newest bloodline, Tide Racers, who are powerful demigods that originated from the fiercest seas. In short, the game is constantly being improved and updated with new content, and the fun of creating new hybrid combinations never ends. Furthermore, the game is designed with stunning graphics to provide a top-tier visual experience on mobile phones and smart pads. Enjoy collecting fantasy characters in full 3D graphics. Rewarding late-game PvP, all players can get the uniquely designed hybrid champions, Bloodcraft Legends, by earning points in seasonal guild wars. On top of that, you can raise your heirs with your companion or waifu, gender can be changed depending on preference. You must employ strategy to build your kingdom and economy, and you can do it all while enjoying the beautiful scenes and interesting storylines. New bloodlines and legendary hybrids are constantly being released into the game, so the possibilities are endless for you to seek out the greatest hybrid to suit your style. Download the game now, for free on both Android and iOS by using the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen if you're viewing on a PC. With our link, you'll get a special starter pack worth $20 with 1 summoning crystal, 100,000 gold, and 100 diamonds. Finally, the first 30 players who leave their in-game account ID and username in the pinned comment below will receive a free legendary female succubus champion, the Luxuriant, one of the best mages to carry you in the game. I'll be seeing you in the game, and with that, let's begin discussing where One Piece succeeded by seeing where Cowboy Bebop failed. Ignoring for the moment some stunt casting in the name of diversity and inclusion, and also ignoring for the moment one prominent cast member who turned the entire fanbase against the series by being Rachel Zegler before Rachel Zegler was Rachel Zegler. Outside of that, the Netflix live-action Cowboy Bebop adaptation still made some critical errors in how it chose to adapt the material. First and foremost, while I will not claim to be a fan of the material myself, even I know that the storytelling in the original anime is pretty sophisticated. There is complexity in the narrative, as well as layer upon layer upon layer of subtext. As a general thing, the original source material having that is a red flag when it comes to live-action adaptations, and this is true well beyond the realm of anime. If a novel, a comic book, or hell, even a video game is loaded with story, finesse, subtext, and subtlety, then really, all that means for those doing the adaptation is that their job just got a hell of a lot more difficult. They do have a couple of options though. One is to try to find a way to retain the layers and messaging of the original work, which is what Peter Jackson did with his Lord of the Rings, and which he overall was successful at, certainly at the box office. But this approach requires a lot of running time. Another option is to discard the philosophy and message of the original work and supplant it with a new message and philosophy derived from the vision of the filmmaker. This is what John Milius did with Conan the Barbarian, what Walt Disney did with Mary Poppins, and what Stanley Kubrick did with The Shining. And that's incidentally also why the authors behind the books the latter two were based on, who were alive to see the movie adaptations of their work, absolutely hated those movies. And then of course there is the final option, which is to simply dumb it down. And that's what they did with Cowboy Bebop. They dumbed it down. Of course, they probably didn't see it that way. The producers didn't think they were dumbing it down. From their point of view, they were making it accessible. And it was in doing so that they messed up even worse. The stereotype of the Japanese is that they are polite, soft-spoken, and extremely well-mannered, and so Japanese fiction is loud, brash, overtly expressive, with an added emphasis on the feminine and the masculine, including in design, and seen from Western eyes, it's all a bit weird. And that's part of the point. Anime and manga are silly by nature. The hand-drawn artwork places no restrictions on the story or action, meaning it can go where live action normally cannot. That way, it can feel immature, it can have over-the-top sexiness like Faye Valentine, and a dog that is secretly a supercomputer. All of this, however, is a feature. This is part of the appeal and why manga sales are crushing superhero comics in the West right now. However, the makers of Netflix Cowboy Bebop mistook this feature for a bug that had to be fixed in the name of accessibility and current year values where Faye Valentine was concerned. And so, they subdued the expressiveness and the femininity because they thought that was dumb and problematic, all while dumbing down the story and the narrative. And then on top of that again, you had all the stunt casting. In short, they did everything ass backwards, and that is why the live-action Cowboy Bebop failed so badly on Netflix. Luckily, lessons were learned. Hollywood has a sad tendency to double down on failure, but on very rare occasions, the right message may be learned, and this was one of those occasions. The live-action Cowboy Bebop was made by production company Tomorrow Studios, and incredibly, Netflix tasked them with developing the live-action One Piece as well. But, as covered by Bounding into Comics, Tomorrow Studios producer Marty Adelstein had heard the complaints against Cowboy Bebop loud and clear, and he was determined not to repeat those mistakes. To Variety, he admitted that the Cowboy Bebop failure taught him and his team that the fans are expecting you to be true to the source material. As we read the comments in response to Cowboy Bebop, it was always, well, they didn't do this character the same as this and that. It really taught us a lot of what we have needed to do with this one. It kind of goes without saying that the character traits fans were complaining about were the very same ones that the producers mistakenly thought they had made better. Instead, they were slammed, not just by fans, but by the original Cowboy Bebop director. But they actually learned from their mistakes, and from the ashes of Netflix Cowboy Bebop rose Netflix One Piece. Harkening back to what I said about the complexity of the source material, there are by all means many layers to One Piece as well. You'll find themes ranging from government oppression to ancient civilizations, yet it is in principle easier to adapt to another medium than something like Cowboy Bebop. But that only means the scripts are slightly more straightforward to write for One Piece, which makes the tone and atmosphere all the more important, because that is where the manga silliness, if you will, is found. Luckily, the live-action One Piece embraces the silly. The character of Luffy is basically a cartoon, always smiling and fighting with over-the-top powers and attacks. This is by design, as he is the personification of freedom, and that includes from the boundaries of reality itself. That was the key to getting this right. The point of the manga is to follow your dreams no matter how impossible they may seem, and for that to translate on screen, the producers simply had to let go and not let the characters be bound by the laws of reality. What they also had to let go of, and this would have been every bit as difficult, was the compulsion to use this as a means to proselytize Hollywood's gendered ideology upon the world. Instead, they had to adhere to traditional gender roles and let girls be girls and boys be boys. And in so doing, they will be rewarded with some proper girl bosses down the line. But would they have done that if creator Eiichiro Oda hadn't been there to oversee everything? I'm guessing probably not. So fans of One Piece worldwide should thank their lucky stars Oda actually owns enough of the rights that he can demand to sign off on everything as a condition for granting the rights to do the series at all. The producers learned their lesson, but Oda probably pushed them even further than they initially planned, and that is no doubt part of why One Piece is the rousing success it is, creatively as well as financially. And it is because of that financial success that Hollywood will be taking notes. Let's summarize the steps that led to success. With One Piece, they were dealing with a story and narrative that is straightforward enough that it can be adapted without any changes in philosophy or dumbing down. They were brave enough to go all out and not be restricted by the limitations of physical reality while adhering to traditional gender roles. And helping them out, they had a gatekeeper who understands the market and who could shut them down if they veered too far, of course. Or put another way, there were checks and balances which ensured the series would appeal to the original audience. They didn't make this for an imaginary modern audience that doesn't actually exist, they made this for the original audience. And because they did, everyone else gets to see why the fans love it in the first place, all while getting hooked in the process. Hollywood, that's how you do it. For the counterpoint, here is how not to do it.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that
she's not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Let me know your thoughts on One Piece and all of this in the comments. And before you go, remember to download Bloodline Heroes of Lithos now for free on both Android and iOS by using the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen if you're viewing on a PC.